Okay. So let's just start at the very beginning. What drew you to soccer?
Yeah, so I started playing soccer when I was about 5 years old. But I would say that the moment and the time that really drew me to the game was watching the 2006 World Cup go on. I remember we were on vacation, I forget where, but I didn't want to really leave the room. I didn't want to go on vacation because I was just my eyes were stuck to the TV watching all of the nations and all of the passion from the players, and it definitely drew my inspiration to really take soccer seriously. And I really just started falling in love with the game ever since. So I think that was really the time around. I was born in 99 and it was 2006, so when I was 7 or 8 years old, that was really when I started falling in love with it and made it my full-time focus, I think.
Yeah. And then at 13, you were on the US youth national team. How did you get there and what did that entail?
Yeah, I think obviously a lot of hard work, but from basically from age of seven to 13, basically that love and passion that I was talking about kind of just made the work fun and made it easy for me to enjoy playing, and the training, the individual training and things that I did outside of practice where it was just fun work for me, and it sharpened my skills, and I definitely made it my focus to become one of the best players in the country. So getting obviously getting that invite was a big accomplishment for me to be recognized like that. And that week in that national camp was actually tough. I had mental difficulties there as well, but to be recognized like that and to play with all of those players is something I strive for. So it was a really great experience overall.
So how did they find you?
Um, so I played on a team called New York Soccer Club, and we were part of club soccer. And there's this other, basically half of the demographic, which is academy soccer. And most of the top players, honestly, are found in their academy system, and they have MLS teams, professional teams that have youth academies that most of the top players, I guess I would say, they're from there. But I guess I had been performing very well at the club level, that they wanted me to get mixed in with most of those guys. Honestly, I thought, to be honest, it was a bit unfair how they treated just club soccer in general. There's a ton of great players within that demographic that are probably still unheard of and unfound. But I was lucky enough that they found me. And I heard from my coach and our athletic director at the club that I had been invited. I wasn't actually sure how they found me. I guess they have scouts that I know they have. This is a good example of how it's a bit unfair or uneven. Is they have U.S. scouts at almost all the academy games, and they're not really found at the club level. So maybe they heard my name and they wanted to come see me. So I was lucky enough to have them scout me. But obviously I was lucky enough, and it was a good accomplishment based on all the hard work and time I put in. So I was very happy.
Yeah. So then you went on to play internationally.
Mm-hmm.
In what capacity? And how old were you?
So so yeah, I was still around that age, 13, 12, 13 years old, and first our club team, New York Soccer Club, wanted to compete in a tournament in Amsterdam. And that was an amazing, amazing experience. I love just going to tournaments and being with the guys off the field all the time. So to not be in a familiar space and to be overseas and both competing on the field but also just having fun off the field was an amazing experience for me, just to experience it with my friends and my teammates who I'm so close with still to this day. And individually, I also got invited to train with Chelsea FC's U13, U14 team in England. So that was like an insane experience. I was just there for like 3 or 4 days, but the training was high intensity. It was like, at the best it's going to get pretty much at any level, especially European, and to just be in that environment at that training ground, which is like incredibly professional. And, Chelsea right now is, they're in the Champions League final, and it's one of the best teams in the world at the moment. So to play with their youth players, and actually to see some of the players that I played with now playing for Chelsea's first team and getting minutes is like an incredible, thing to think about. Like, wow, I was really playing with those guys. And that was incredible. And I think I'm not, maybe a year later, I got invited to train with Club Bruges in Belgium for 2 weeks. And that was also just, to experience all these different cultures, within a short span of time. It gave me a lot of, great perspective on worldview, both in and out of soccer. And, on the field, I also was performing well. I scored 4 goals in the 2 games that I played with them. And again, a lot of those guys were Belgium national team players. So, compared to the US, it's, at that age, a lot of the top players, not only, I was playing with the top players in the country, but now I was kind of expanding my reach and were, playing capacity to the best players in the world, I guess, at that time, for my age. So it was awesome to be able to play with them and learn a lot, honestly, from all these different players and see where I'm at skill wise. So it was an incredible experience, one that I'll definitely never forget.
So when you were like 13 or 14 and you were representing all of these big name teams, did it sink into you what was happening, that this was an experience that so few people get to go through? I mean, did you have any pressure at that young age that if I messed up, this could impact the rest of my career? Or was it just kind of like, this is a cool thing to be doing currently?
I think I'm a person that generally puts pressure on myself. I think that is something that an athlete is used to and kind of has to do to push themselves forward and keep improving. So throughout my whole soccer career, not just then, I definitely put a lot of pressure on myself and wanted to perform well, 24/7, 100% of the time. I think for me, that's what pushed me to keep going and to hold myself to that high standard is something that I think is very important for an athlete. But I also think it leads to some frustration and can sometimes be counterintuitive and backfire a little bit when I personally, I know it was hard on myself, if I didn't play well. But at that time, I think I was definitely, whenever those thoughts came in, the first thing I had to remind myself was like, look where I am. And this is an incredible experience that, like you said, few people get to have and get to experience. So I think I had a good balance throughout that experience of just, I tried to play to the best of my ability and I wanted to prove myself. But at the same time, was extremely grateful throughout the whole experience, just that I was literally in that vicinity, regardless of what I did on the field. So I think it was a good mix at that time of both, for sure.
So then how did Georgetown find you? Was it
Yeah.
from
So
was it from something like that where you were just in the public eye, or did you go to a camp that they had?
I think I was more in the public eye. I think it was similar to probably how the U.S. youth national team found me, where, again, not a lot of college scouts in addition to, top college scouts and college coaches in addition to the U.S. national team coaches really come to club games. They mostly go to academy because that's where supposedly the top players are. But I think I had been doing well, obviously individually, and I had those experiences both at the national team level and overseas that gave me a bit of headway in the club ranks. And at that time, I also did network. I was networking because I was trying to find a home and a college for me to play. When I was graduating from high school. So Georgetown was at the top of my list, and I definitely loved the coach there, and I wanted him to come see me. So we happened to be playing a tournament in the Potomac area, so that's like 30 minutes from Georgetown's campus, and he came and saw me. We had a good conversation on the phone after that, and yeah, I mean, I also wanted to find a place that I knew a coach was really, really interested in me and didn't just want to, I feel like it's difficult making a decision because you don't know where you stand, and you don't know what your playing time is going to be like. You don't know really how much a coach values you within your class. So I definitely wanted to find a place where I knew I would be valued and I knew I could contribute the most on the field. So I think Coach Weiss really made it clear to me that he valued me and he really wanted me on the team. And ever since I never really looked back. And yeah, it's been a long journey from there.
So looking back on that, knowing how he handled you asking to take a season off,
Mhm.
did you make the right choice?
I don't know if there is a right choice, honestly. I think it's a very individual decision. I personally think that's what I needed at the time. So yeah, I guess if I were to make a claim or a judgment on it, I think it was the right thing for me. At the time, my anxiety my freshman year was pushing me to the point where I was falling out of love with soccer, and my performance, you know, on the field. I don't know really how much they could pick up on the fact that I mentally wasn't there, but I was happy, I guess, that sparked, the the idea that I wanted to communicate to them that my mentality wasn't in a good place to keep playing. And we had really good conversations about, again, he was so open and communicative with me about how much he valued me, both as a player, but also more importantly as a person. And he wanted to put my well-being first, which I appreciated a lot. And I think it made um, the things to follow after that a lot smoother than it would have been. And it was really hard that summer, after I kind of told him, look, I don't have the drive, the motivation to perform on the field. I think it's hurting me more than it's helping me at the moment. That summer was hard. It was, I was depressed for a large amount of it just because soccer had been my whole life at that point. And I think I tied a lot of my identity to the sport. And, thinking about the possibility of not playing was a difficult thing for me. And taking that semester off and that season off from playing gave me the peace of mind and the clarity, I think, to watch it from an outsider's perspective. And I think I was able to look at just this picture of guys, having fun and playing, and I missed it. And I wanted to, not only get back and perform on the field and play soccer again, but I also wanted to prove to myself that I could get through those mental obstacles, and I could fight through what I was going through to get to the other side with their help, obviously. So I came back, and that's what I did. I think it was the right decision for me at the time, like I said, and it gave me some a break, really, to just focus and rejuvenate my confidence in my mind. So yeah.
So you said something interesting. You said that you were mistaking your anxiety and your burnout for losing the love of the game. Why was that?
Yeah, I think it's difficult when you're going through it, and anxiety in general, I think, for me, from my experience, has made just judgment in general very difficult because you're clouded with all this emotion and you can't think straight. And that was the hardest part for me, and it still is. When emotions like anxiety and fear and doubt and exhaustion and all of those things come into play, it definitely interfered with my drive, I would say, to I think that was the first thing, like when you're having those emotions, you don't want to feel them. You don't want to feel like that when you're doing something that you love. And as a result, it made me think, there would be questions in my head like, if I do love this sport and if I want to continue, why do I feel this way when I'm playing or when I'm in season or even out of season? Why is this emotion and why am I feeling like this? Why is it taking over kind of my daily life? I think when it bled into my daily life and other aspects of thought and I wasn't able to do the things that I normally could in terms of just, the daily grind was really getting to me and it was exhausting. And, it, like you said, it made me question what place soccer had in my life for the future. And yeah, I mean, it was difficult to sort through, am I losing? Is it just losing, my love for the game, or is it, something bigger than that? Is it the anxiety and depression kind of clouding that judgment? And I questioned if I was ever going to be able to be happy playing again, or really, do I really want to kick a soccer ball again at all? So I think it was definitely confusing for me at the time, and it's a great question because I think a lot of players go through it all the time. I think when you see high school athletes or college athletes come to a point and they have to decide if they want to continue with their sport or not. And I don't think there's any one particular answer. I don't think you can Google, should I quit my sport? And they'll have a direct answer for you, even though we all do. That's what I did. I Googled stuff like that. But no, I think it's a very individual decision. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know whether it was losing love for the game or if the mental, struggles that I had really interfered with that. I think it's probably a combination of both, and I think they kind of intertwine together. I think the first is probably involved in losing, your drive and your motivation. So, but it's also a very normal process. I think you have to come to peace with it at some point. That's what's occurring, I guess.
So, what situations were happening in order for you to feel triggered, like a panic attack would set in, or you would have a sudden onset of anxiety? I mean, was there a certain performance trigger, or was that something that you were doing throughout your day?
So that's a great question. I think for me, the the social aspect I think was difficult for me. I think um, my panic attacks would come. I guess it's a combination of things. The first panic attack I had at Georgetown was returning my freshman spring. It was within a couple hours actually that I got back to campus for our spring season, and it was after a really hard and long fall season, and I was confused about where my role was on the team, and obviously I had been exhausted at the time with fighting my mind really mentally to keep going. So I think with that panic attack, I had gotten there, and again, I think my emotions really just clouded, a lot of my ration and my logic, unfortunately. And I guess that one, there's no particular trigger, I guess that set me off, but both of my bad panic attacks that I can remember were within hours of returning to campus whenever I would come back after a while. So like after, December break, I would come back, I had this panic attack. And then after the next summer when I came back for preseason, I also had a panic attack. So I guess if there was a common theme, I guess it would just be not used to the environment, and then, coming in straight away and having all of these thoughts rush back, and having all of this. I don't know if I would characterize it as fear, but I guess it was really just intrusive thoughts about my future. And again, I didn't want to feel like that anxiety anymore. It was, very crippling. And I guess I had, um, just returning to campus and literally feeling sensing all of my surroundings. Yeah, I guess brought me back to feeling like that, and just set me off, I guess, mentally, and went straight into panic mode. The second really bad one, when I came back for preseason, that one really shocked me because I had a great spring, returning to the team my sophomore year, and I had a great summer playing. I was both playing well and feeling well. So when I came back to preseason, it was, basically the whole team was in one house, and we returned, and I was looking forward to the season. But I guess this is what I meant by the social part. I guess I just felt so much. I don't really know what it is. I guess I feel like it's a feeling of being trapped, is how I always describe it. Like, I didn't have my own space, or I didn't feel comfortable for whatever reason, to be able to be in that environment. I remember going, asking my fourth assistant basically to just go back to the office with me and hang out with me, and just we can like chill out and talk, because I had felt the anxiety coming on. So yeah, I mean, it's difficult to figure out like a particular trigger. There were definitely like symptoms similar to that I had in situations like the national camp, and with the national team, where I feel, how I'd always describe it is it's just feeling trapped, and feeling like I can't escape from either whether that's my mind or the actual environment I'm in. I felt so, I guess, crippled, and unable to really breathe, and be clear about what I was thinking at the time. So that those are kind of the symptoms and what I was feeling at the time, I guess.
So did you ever bring that to your coach that you were feeling that way prior to starting the conversation about taking a year off?
No, I hadn't. I think I definitely regret that, because when I would talk to my parents and think about it, I think the first action step that I would always think of is, why not tell my coach? Why not, tell my teammates? Why not make this easier for myself and open up about it? But I think, that stigma really got to me, and I was afraid of looking weak, and particularly in athletics, you don't want to, paint this picture of yourself where you don't want your coach to feel like he can't maybe trust you, on the field, and because you have, everyone knows that mentality is so important, on the fields, and I didn't want my coach, I guess, or anyone else making a judgment about, what I was going through. I kind of at that point would rather have masked it, and try and fight through it myself and on my own than keep going. So no, I didn't. Unfortunately, I regret not having a conversation with him sooner. Because once I did, after the year off, and especially after I came back and had those panic attacks again, that was when we really started talking about what anxiety really felt like. I was grateful that he was genuinely curious, and started just having conversations with me about what panic attacks feel like, so he could, understand better. I think to your question before, a trigger point, I guess for me would be away trips. Those would be really hard because, as I said, I guess I would get this feeling of feeling trapped and like I can't, that I don't have my own space and that I don't have the space maybe to be open and be vulnerable. So what he actually did was, he would make accommodations for me and he would stick me with people that I was comfortable with rooming wise. And it made the world of difference. It got me through away trips, not only got me through, but I really enjoyed the away trips. And I loved, it brought me back to those times like in Belgium and in England where, I was just with my teammates and my friends and we were just hanging out, having fun. And, my anxiety and these intrusive thoughts weren't coming in because of those, all because of these conversations that I had with my coach and I'm so thankful that he understood the mental side as well as the physical side of the game, and was able to help me out in that way.
So let's talk about the psychologist at Georgetown that you went to and how you thought that if there was one for every team, you may have been handled differently.
Yeah, I think having a psychologist for the whole athletic department is great, but I think the amount of importance and the amount of need that I've seen not only in my experience, but obviously, talking about mental health in college athletics, you can, having one or two conversations, I think anyone can learn that there's more work to be done in that space. I think there's so many needs. I know there were a lot of needs at Georgetown in particular, to figure out, and get help with people's and athletes' mental health. I don't think the psychologists unfortunately had enough time honestly for everyone to go around. I was when I was in the middle of my panic attacks in preseason and really needed like immediate help and training. The psychologist was only available, once every like 2 or 3 weeks, and it wouldn't have worked. I needed someone that was kind of working with me either daily or just more than that space of time to really work through this stuff with me. As I said, I feel like, or as you said, I feel like a psychologist for each team would be so much more beneficial. And we do have athletic trainers and we have physical athletic trainers for physical injuries and working out and things like that. And we even have a lift coach for each team, not just one athletic, for the whole athletic department. So I always think, and I always will think that each team does deserve its own psychologist to really understand the inner workings of a team. That's a big point I guess I would make, is that each team is also different. So for a psychologist to really understand what someone is going through, I think they need to be in that environment. And I was lucky enough, obviously, to have conversations with my coach, and treated that almost like therapy in a way. And we also had our athletic trainer and our fourth assistant that I mentioned a little bit before. Were basically my makeshift therapists. They helped a lot with me. We still talk today, just as friends. They really cared about my well-being, and I know they were vital from a morale and psychological perspective for not just me but the whole team. So I can only imagine what a real trained clinical psychologist could do for all of our to improve our teamwork, to improve our morale, camaraderie, all those good things, to keep our mental health in check. So I think that would be totally useful.
So at what point did you look at what you were doing and how you were feeling and say, I think I need to step back from this? I mean, was there one point where you said, I'm not feeling like I used to?
Yeah, there actually is. Like, it's it's rare that I have like a 1 point answer when people ask me those things. But I do have 1 point where I definitely felt like, yeah, this is not right. It was in this my freshman year spring, and we were playing Duke at the time. It was just a friendly spring game, and we don't have a competitive season in the spring. It's only the fall, so the spring was only 5 games. It's mostly training. It's really just for development. But even with that, it's less pressure, but I still was obviously putting all this pressure on myself and having trouble mentally dealing with my anxiety. Um, and this was our second to last spring game, so this was the fourth game we would play. And we were at Duke, and I was starting. I had started every game. So again, my mind would go to, okay, I'm starting, and the coach is valuing me, and I'm playing, and I'm playing like pretty well. Why am I not still enjoying this? And I didn't have the answers to that at that time. But in this game at Duke, I the first half, this was the most depressing and the worst feeling as a soccer player who loves to create and dominate the game. I just wanted to be out of the game. I was going through the motions. I didn't want the ball. I was basically hiding behind defenders to not get the ball. And basically I ended up taking myself out of the game. I felt like physically like I was done for whatever reason. And I told my coach, like, look, something's wrong. Like, my hamstring is gone. Like, I just want to be out. Like, I can't do this anymore. I didn't say it obviously like that, but I basically ended up taking myself out of the game. And at that point, I just I put my head down, and I was like, why am I, doing this to myself? If I don't want to be here, I'm either going to do something about it and take that break, or I'm gonna, or I want to be all in. And I couldn't be all in, obviously, at that time. Just mentally, I was done. I was exhausted. And yeah, there was that 1 point in the, just those 45 minutes, that first half it was depressing, honestly, to feel like a ghost, I guess, playing when in the past, all I remember is just good memories, and me, really, really wanting to score and to win, and feeling that love and passion for the guys around you, and the sport in general is one of the best feelings. But on the flip side, feeling like a ghost and going through the motions is like the most depressing thing when it gave you so much joy in the past. So that was totally the moment where I was like, okay, I need to have a conversation with my coach and be open and honest and tell him what I'm feeling, because I couldn't do it anymore, I guess.
So was that before or after you started kind of excusing yourself from team activities with I'm studying or I have something else that I have to do?
Mhm.
Was that game before or after you were already kind of figuring out ways to work through and around what you were feeling?
Yeah, I think mostly it was before. But there were times even before that where the guys would want to get together or something, and I just wouldn't want to. I think my anxiety would get in the way of that, and yeah, I would remove myself a little bit in those situations, but I was still pushing, and still I'd say a lot less than after that, because I was still pushing and working through, and giving it a real shot to get over this anxiety. I was, the whole time I was kind of just like, why is all of this resistance here, as far as you know ex- as far as team activities go. And yeah, I think it was really after that game, which is when I really started to have a conversation with my coach, and I guess, yeah, remove myself from more situations with the team, so I could let myself breathe and let myself get a clear head. But before that, yeah, I mean, it was difficult for me at times to be able to be with the team, because all of these thoughts were just rushing in my head the whole time. I didn't have a clear head. I was worried that everyone else would pick up on the fact that I didn't have a clear head. So I think it was probably me just protecting myself and wanting to mask those feelings and those thoughts. But I guess in a way, although I avoided it um, after a bit as well, it got easier because as I began to start becoming more open and talking to my teammates about how I was feeling and my coaches about how I was feeling, there was no, and to see their reaction that, it's okay. And that, we still love you. There's no, harm and, there's nothing you got to be worried about from our end about how we're going to treat you. That gave me the confidence and comfort to not feel trapped anymore, I guess. I embraced being with them by the end of it instead of wanting to shy away, I guess, from my feelings and my thoughts. So yeah.
So how did you come in to your coach's office and say, I've been trying to work through this on my own, but it's really not working. I need to step back from playing this
Yeah.
season. Will
It's
you take me back once I get this kind of figured out?
yeah, it's never a exciting conversation, never like a good conversation or one that you want to have, but in my mind, definitely necessary. So, I mustered up my pride and I think he in particular, the coaches made it easy, which I'm grateful for on their end. They always say, not just to me and not just about mental health, but about anything. If anyone wants to come in and chat literally about any topic, they always make it a welcome environment and an easy environment just to walk into. So on that front, it was pretty smooth. But obviously, I had anxiety about talking to them about my anxiety. So I'm proud of myself for the way that I communicated with them and talked to them about it. And yeah, I mean, basically, I remember coming into their office, and basically, at one point I was just like, I think I need to be done forever from with playing soccer, which is like an awful conversation to have with someone that has believed in you and wants you to play. And I also, there wasn't a lot I could say as far as what uh I had run out of options at a point, because I felt like, I also wanted to play and I wanted to be there and I wanted to be in a good headspace. I just couldn't figure out how at the time. I think what I didn't realize was their support and their reaction to that, and knowing that I was going to be okay, even if I wasn't okay, actually was what I needed to feel comfortable and to feel confident coming back and playing. Also, like I said, just their general curiosity about what I was going through is something that I feared in the past, and I didn't realize how much it would help me that they would ask about it and that we could be open and I could be vulnerable about those things. And some of the captains, some of my teammates reached out to me. We would have, one-on-one conversations, group conversations, just about how I was feeling. And again, I felt valued and I trusted them with, what I was going through. So coming back, it made it a lot smoother. And honestly, when I came back, it just, I had some anxiety, but it mainly just faded away. Honestly, I think just trust, knowing that they had my back in all aspects, both when I was at my best and my worst, made me feel like I could be myself totally around them, um, and it helped a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you came to your coaching staff at potentially the most vulnerable part of the life that you've lived so far.
Mm-hmm.
And to have them respond exactly in the way that you were hoping that they would, where they said, we're okay with this. Like, we support whatever you choose to do. We're not going to
Mhm.
try to make you do anything that you don't want to do, and that includes staying on this team.
Right.
That
Yeah.
was kind of the perfect response, was it
Yeah.
not?
And no, it was. And to your point, about coming, asking to come back on the team, whenever I would, talk to them about how I was feeling or my anxiety, and as far as making the decision to take a break or to quit entirely, I was never really the one who said, or who wanted to keep the option open for me to come back. I expected, honestly, the first time I talked to him, to just be like, okay, I get it, and see you later, and and all this. But he would, Coach Weiss and all the other coaches were so welcoming, for me to come back. They were always the one that offered that kept that offer standing, and they really did do everything. I could tell they really wanted me, to come back. It was, so I felt like I was, when I was taking that season off, I felt like I was trying to fight through my own battles for myself, but I also wanted, to give back to the people that did believe in me, and give back to the reasons why I was there at the time, which is, the coaching staff. And just a couple of examples. Our assistant coach, Coach Casper, um, when I came to the coaches, he offered uh, a day. Basic, the team was at preseason at the time, and I had stayed back, and he offered to have his wife come talk to me, who has, who goes through her own anxiety battles. And it was just little things like that, like spending, a day with her, just just connecting one-on-one about, and having open conversations about stuff that I was, again, just so fearful of, to have open and honest. It was like, it was weird at first, but then it became normalized. Like, it was everything that, um, that I want to see now, which is just, normalizing that, you know, not everyone is okay 100% of the time. And those feelings should be talked about, because when you do talk about them, it gets you it gets you through to the other side. And that's exactly what happened to me. It helped me so much just to have conversations like that, and see their support, have them, point me to people to talk to resources to go to. It helps. It helps so much. So
So then you take your season off and you return for junior year, and the same thing starts happening. You kick kind of right back into where you left off. How do you how does your coach respond to you coming in saying, "I know I'm back, but so are the feelings."
yeah, I basically just walked in, and it was like, I didn't have to explain much. I was kind of just like, look, it's happening again. This deal. Um, I think that was really the time when, I was at my last, straw. Basically, I was like, I was just, from dealing with it in my freshman year to my sophomore year, and then my junior year, coming back. And I just felt defeated. I really didn't know what else to do at that point, other than to just be honest. And I honestly expected, me to just go in there, say I was done. I was disappointed, obviously, but that was, again, when I really was surprised and grateful for their response, which was like, look, like, this isn't, this, if this is over for you, that's your decision, but we want to do everything we can on our end to make sure that you're okay, regardless if you're playing or if you're not playing. And to have them in my corner, even if I wasn't playing, it completely took the perspective out of the soccer world in general, and was like, these people are there for me, and I want to it made me closer to them, and made me ironically closer to the team and closer to the sport, just to have them in my corner, even when the sport wasn't in my life. Or when I wanted it to not be in my life anymore. It was their reaction was really, what got me back on the team within a week, really.
So you get back on the team, and then that season ends up with a national championship.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, like, that's a perfect story.
yeah. It was. I mean, I'm still in shock to this day because 3 months before the last penalty kick, I was debatably not going to kick a soccer ball ever again, and the the change, the personal growth that I went through in that season, and overcoming, finally overcoming uh, my mental struggles in that season was a type of gratification that I can't even describe. It's something else to perform well on the field, but it's another level of pride and satisfaction when you know that you went through so much beforehand. And yeah, the events leading up to it, I really couldn't have scripted. I couldn't have written it. Like, I couldn't have written it out. And yeah, I mean, I scored goals that I never thought I could or would, let alone just being able to play freely and openly and have fun and really love playing again. Was like, it was amazing. It was pure bliss. And also, when we went into the national championship game, was insane. It was 3-3. It went to penalty kicks, and to have my coach trust me as one of those five guys taking penalty kicks, for someone that, you know mentally, maybe, another coach wouldn't have trusted someone that takes a season off for psychological reasons, to trust me to have a cool head in that moment, just proves that, it speaks to his character and the coaching staff's character, which is like, they didn't discriminate whatsoever just because of the issues that I was having mentally. And it really showed that they wanted me to succeed. And I was just so happy to not only obviously, prove to myself that I could do it, but like I said, just to give back to the coaches that got me there in the first place. And it felt like a group effort. It didn't, it wasn't just me alone at all anymore. Obviously, I wasn't alone in what I was going through and my journey, and they were there, throughout the whole thing. So I was so happy to give Coach Weiss his first national championship, and the program our first national championship. But man, it was an amazing experience. I'll never forget it.
So you kind of alluded to this earlier, but how did that season and winning the Big East and being the
Mhm.
MVP and then winning the national championship, how did that bring you back to why you started playing?
Yeah, I mean, winning is fun. Winning is what sport is about, and I think in addition to that, you know, for I can't put my finger on it, but I think obviously the conversations that I was having with my coaches, and um, feeling like I was valued, and I was able to feel comfortable and confident, bled into, both off the field and on the field. It really did, make me perform better on the field. I think I played with confidence. I played freely. I wasn't that guy hiding behind defenders anymore, or not wanting to the ball. I wanted to stay in the entire game. I just love. I remember, even after the games, just every day was, I didn't want it to end, instead of, and I reflect all the time about, fast or rewind, a year or two before, and I wanted every day to end, immediately, as quickly as possible. And I was just getting through the motions. But, this time around, it was like, I was really soaking up each moment. And yeah, I mean, we were winning. I was playing well. I could not believe I scored the winning goal in the Big East final. That was like, every piece of success I had on the field, the first thing I think about is the off the field stuff and the mental, battles that I went through. And I attribute all of my success on the field to me just working with my coaches, pushing through those mental battles, and it meant so much more to me than just the soccer achievements. Then, so yeah, it was incredible.
So now looking back on that, you would have missed so much had
Mhm,
you hung your cleats up
mhm,
junior year and said, I don't love this the way that I used to. You
mhm.
would have missed all of that.
Yep.
You ever reflect on that piece of it?
Um, the story is so crazy to me that I whenever I start thinking of what ifs, I tell myself to stop because there's so many what ifs. But that's why I don't necessarily try and judge, when I took that year off, my sophomore year, because I could have, who knows what could have happened if I was to play that. We could have won 2 national championships maybe. Um, but yeah, I definitely think to myself, I'm so happy. It gave me a sense of meaning and purpose when I was going through all of those mental battles. I think, you know, if I had just quit and stopped playing entirely, I think there would have been totally a question mark over my head, whether I could have played, and I could have had all of these experiences, and I wouldn't have had my story. I wouldn't have had my ring. I would have missed out, like you said, on all of those experiences. So it gives me a lot of motivation and clarity for the future as well about similar situations when I think I'm down and out, just to remember what has happened to me and what I would have missed. I don't want to miss out on those types of experiences, now and for the future. So it's definitely something I can always come back to in the entirety of my life. I think one of the last conversations I had with my coach when I was still at Georgetown was, this is just the type of guy he is, really. He the last piece of advice he really gave to me was, if you ever doubt yourself in any aspect of life, just come back and put yourself on that penalty spot and just put yourself there. And that's where you're really meant to be. So, yeah, it's something that I'll remember, him saying that for a long time. And, yeah, I'm very happy that I did not stop playing.
Yeah. That's so let's also talk about breaking through the limit of what you think that you're capable of. Because
Hmm.
you could have easily said, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to even try it this season.
Hmm.
I'm going to just end soccer right now.
Hmm.
But somewhere in your brain, you thought, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
stronger than this feeling.
Hmm. Yeah.
And can you just kind of work through how you got to that point?
Yeah, totally. I think, like I said, it was scarier and darker when I was fighting through it on my own. So I think the first step for me was communicating and being open about what I was feeling, because it made it, more of a team effort, and they being the coaches and my team elevated me to be able to push through those barriers and those obstacles. They gave me the platform and the level to fight my anxiety, I guess, head on. And like I said, they gave me accommodations on away trips. They made me feel like I could fight through those obstacles. And if my anxiety did come on, I knew at that time that I was going to be okay, and that they were going to have my back, and that, you know, if I did need to take, a dinner off or a team activity off, I could. It wasn't the end of the world. And just knowing that they all had my back was I would say the main thing that pushed me through my mental struggles. But it's also, I mean, I can speak to what I'm doing now, I guess, for it, which I wish I did more of in the past, which is, really seeing doing the work and seeing a therapist consistently and meditating, practicing breathing and mindfulness techniques. Those are things that I'm continuously practicing now in an effort to continue to overcome any mental obstacles and issues that I face in the future. But at that time, I mean, really, it was their backing and their support that pushed me through to the other side, I think. And yeah, I trusted them just as much as they trusted me with what we were doing on the field and off the field. So
So
yeah.
when you started to tell your teammates about what you were feeling and what you were going through, how did they react? And not just the ones that like you were close to.
Mhm. It was, you know, it it was confusing, honestly, for some of them, but at the same time, that confusion came. I could tell first and foremost, but it also visibly came with support and encouragement. I don't blame anyone for being confused. I think it's important to acknowledge that maybe you don't understand. If someone doesn't understand what I'm feeling, which I don't expect them to ask about it and to be curious about it, so that I can work with them and tell them what was going on. So their curiosity just fundamentally was appreciated by me. And I got to a point where I could have conversations with them, if they were asking, or if they were curious about why maybe I wouldn't want to be involved in a team activity, or why, or maybe that I felt like I couldn't that day. They were understanding and supportive once I told them why. I think, because the majority of them don't experience things like panic attacks. They didn't have the firsthand perspective, I guess, which is difficult. And it can be confusing because when you don't understand something or experience something firsthand, you're never going to be able to get the full grasp of what it does feel like and what you're going to do as a result of that, in terms of distancing yourself from the team and explaining why you feel certain ways. But overall, they were very supportive and very understanding about, even if they didn't truly grasp what was going on, they understood that this is Jack's needs, and this is he respects our needs, so both individually and collectively, so we're going to respect his. And that was something that I was so relieved about, because of all of the stigma I felt and all the fear I felt around it. So overall, it was there were very good conversations that I had with my teammates about it.
So let's kind of flip this on its head and say that you are the teammate and you
Mm-hmm.
have one of your teammates that comes to you and says, I'm going through these panic attacks and I have this anxiety that's related to being with you guys and playing the game that we all love. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what to do. I don't want to tell the coach. I just need to confide in you.
Mm-hmm.
How does that potentially help? I guess, how do you, as the supportive teammate, support your teammate?
Yeah, I think daily, like, pretty much, I have a lot of perspective just now about what I want and what I would have wanted at the time, as far as support and encouragement. I think daily check-ins are huge. Like, just simply asking, how are you, or is there any way I can help? Not even not even telling you, this is what I would do, or what, just being open, and leaving it open, just saying, look, I'm here to help in any way I can, is something that um, I think is very useful, because it gives the other person an opportunity to expand what they want to do about it. I think it gets a little tricky when someone is telling you, well, this is what I do, do this, or, so I think I would simply just, being an ally is something that, is one of the best things that you can do. Researching exactly what they're going through. So you said panic attacks. So I obviously have a lot of perspective on that. But if someone was, bipolar or having suicidal thoughts, maybe that's not something that I've experienced firsthand. So I would, research about it first. I would also just be curious and ask them, how are you feeling? How can I support you? I would also, if they're not comfortable, then that's fine. But I would encourage them, just based on my story, to talk about it, to the rest of the team and to the coaches. And I would go in there with them. Honestly, I would, and I would just want them to know that, that they don't have to be alone in what they're going through, because not only does everyone have their struggles, but everyone will be there for yours. So, that's what happened to me, and I'm grateful for it. And I hope all student athletes really know that, that people will be there to help. So,
So, how do these panic attacks and anxiety manifest in your life now that you're removed from the sport?
yeah, I think, um, again, I'm doing work to work on myself and my mentality, and, going forward. But it can be tricky, especially now, not officially not playing soccer, and moving on with my life. I've spent, 15 years just kicking soccer balls in nets. So it feels like a whole new world, honestly, which is exciting. It's really exciting. But I think also the amount of opportunities, and the amount, the ways in which I could go, can become very overwhelming, for someone that doesn't have a lot of experience with other things other than just playing soccer and committing all my time to being a student athlete. So, I definitely still feel some anxiety about, my future, but I think trying to stay in the present moment has been crucial for me. I think it's something that everyone should learn from a very young age. I think it ties into not letting your worries and your fears and your emotions kind of take over your reason and logic. And I think by staying in the moment, you just focus on what you want in that moment, and you focus on your reason and logic, instead of allowing all of these thoughts about either the future or the past, or your past experiences, kind of interfere with the present and what you want to do. So, I think I'm doing better, and I'm going to take all of my lessons that I learned at Georgetown and throughout my career. Again, like I said, to not doubt myself, and to trust, I guess, the process, and trust that, I will get everything figured out, and that I can break through, any barriers that come along the way. So I'm much more confident, I would say, these days, about, my future and what I want. So I'm sure I will get it figured out, and everything will fall into place.
So, let's talk about that future. Where do you want to be in even 3 years?
hmm Well, I there's so many opportunities, and I think about entrepreneurship. I think about working in soccer. I think about, getting involved in marketing, which has been my first real passion and interest outside of soccer, and maybe combining all of them together, somehow. I think, you know, soccer has given me so much already that it makes sense for me to continue it in that line of work somehow. I really believe in the growth of the game. I think it's still a new sport relatively, in the United States, and I feel like it's the most popular sport in the world for a reason. And it's, like I said, I fell in love, as that 7-year-old with the passion and the love for the game. So I, as many people as I could reach, to share that passion for the game and maybe make that shift in our culture is something that I'm super interested in. And I think marketing is kind of the way and the avenue for that cultural shift, I guess, in our country. You see so many trends on social media and the way that digital media influences the way that our culture works and our society operates. So if I could do that around soccer, maybe in Major League Soccer or U.S. soccer, something like that, I think that would be a good starting point for me. And hopefully in 3 or 5 years' time, I definitely have it more figured out than now. But definitely want some sort of marketing role within those organizations.
We'll do like a "Where Are They Now" episode,
Yeah,
and you can come back and just talk about what you're doing now.
yeah, yeah.
So, one last question.
Mhm.
How would you, or I guess, what would you do to change how the public perceives athletes with mental health issues? And
Yeah,
then, I guess, an addendum, how do you think that athletic departments can do a better job of facilitating help for those athletes?
yeah, that's a great question. I think for the future of mental health and athletics, and it's my hope that um, that all coaches and all departments, trainers, and what have you, look at mental health struggles and issues as basically a normal thing. I think everyone understands that the grind of being a student athlete can be exhausting and sometimes deteriorating, as well as obviously rewarding. But I think you need help and you need an understanding around the fact that um, you know student athletes might look perfect on the outside, and again, with social media and the way that athletes, in particular student athletes, are marketed these days, it often seems like everything is going great, and it is, a very, like I said, a very rewarding season, and the national championship season is probably will remain one of the best experiences of my life. But I think it's important, obviously, like we're talking about now, that what people don't see is all of the mental struggles and the work and time, blood, sweat, and tears that go into it, and all of the ups and downs. So I think not glamorize not glamorizing that and making it real and valid is important, and acknowledging that fact is really important. And I think that something that athletic departments can do, like I said, hopefully is have a psychologist for each team, things like that. Hopefully there are more conversations that student athletes feel that they can have with their coaches, and really work together with their teammates and their coaches to make it a comfortable environment and a healthy environment, so that everyone can perform at their best, both physically and mentally. And I think just on the general side, I feel like I would want just as much emphasis and importance placed on the physical side, because there is so much in student athletes and athletics, to be put on the mental side, whatever that might look like. So if that's workshops or team activities, I think it's important for coaches to stress the mental side of it as well. If an athlete needs to take breaks, like I have, I think currently some people see it as a problem, but I wouldn't have been a national championship, and debatably, I contributed with the penalties. So I don't know, who knows if they would have won a national champion, if we would have won a national championship, if someone else was taking that penalty, if we probably, I would like to think we would have, um, but at the same time, that came with taking a break from soccer. That it came with having all of these struggles that I was open about. So I hope that other student athletes feel comfortable to be open about it, because it takes stories like mine and all of these other great stories that I'm seeing from other student athletes to make it feel okay to not be okay. And I hope that athlete or not, men or women, I hope everyone feels comfortable in speaking out and knowing that they'll get the proper help like I did.
So that is the last question that I had prepared. So is there anything else that you think that I missed talking about, or anything that you would like to promote? I mean, are there any resources that you used while you were going through that you think would be helpful for anyone listening to this episode? And is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Yeah. I mean, one resource, or I can name a couple of resources. I use Headspace right now for meditation, and I really like it.
Love Headspace here.
Love Headspace. Guy Andy has a great, soothing British voice. um, and yeah, I mean, it helps me stay in the moment. I think I'm really committing myself now that I feel like I couldn't have, I could have done the work meant on myself mentally throughout my career at Georgetown. But now that I'm really out of playing and I have more time to figure my personal growth workout, basically, I'm trying to focus on how I can better myself. And Headspace is something that I use to stay in the moment, which I've value a lot. And I'm also working with a life coach and a sports psychologist who I would recommend. His name is Dr. Brett, for anyone, Dr. Brett Denkin. And he is just real with you. I think it's important to find a good psychologist or a good therapist. I've bounced around in the past before, but I've never really found anyone that connects truly with me. And I feel like I found one. So yeah, I mean, I think as much as we can also talk about, what other people can do to support, I think I'm really excited to take matters into my own hands and feel like I have more control about, really working on myself now that I'm in a better headspace. So I would also check out, there's a bunch of, I'm working with Athletes for Hope, which is a great nonprofit organization that works a lot with student athletes. They came to Georgetown and gave a talk, so that fueled my inspiration to kind of get involved with them. And we lead, you can check it out on their Instagram. I think it's just Athletes for Hope. And I'm
Yeah,
leading.
that was where I actually found you. I was tuning into the Instagram live.
Nice.
And
That's
then
all. Yeah,
I
I was just
messaged you and I was like, I need to talk to you.
yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I was just gonna mention, yeah, we lead Instagram lives during this month, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, and basically I lead discussions with partners and organizations, really anyone that wants to talk about mental health. It's every Wednesday, and so I have one tomorrow, and actually the following week I'm getting my coach on with me to talk about more about like my journey, and have some back and forth just about the importance of mental health in college athletics, and continue this conversation, because I do feel like the conversation really can't stop. I think it's just starting, and people are really starting to understand the importance that psychological needs, as well as the physical needs of athletes. So I really am enjoying having these conversations, and I do think it's making a difference in ending the stigma. There's great organizations that allow athletes to speak out about what they're going through. The Hidden Opponent is a great organization. That's where I also shared my story, if anyone wants to check that out. But there's also, it's a fantastic platform to feel connected in this space when you do, when you're in that dark place and you do feel alone. It's great to have recognition that these things are normal. I think we need to keep normalizing these challenges, because they are real, and no one goes through life without them. So I think it's vital that we keep talking about it, and make it and turn it into a positive thing that someone can overcome and have opportunities grow from it. So So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking through your entire experience, the
Yeah,
good,
of course.
the bad, and the national championship.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been
And I
fun.
think that your episode will come out in 3 weeks from tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'll message you with the links, and then we'll go from there. And then
Awesome.
if you can email me just a picture that I can use for the social, that would be great.
Okay, perfect.
And
That
then
sounds
I'll talk to you soon.
awesome. Sounds good.
Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Bye.